Hi, my name is Brianna Puglisi. I am currently a student at the University of Scranton studying secondary education and history. I intend to graduate next week. My whole life, I've had a passion for teaching and education, as well as helping students. I have learned through my many years of working with children, especially student teaching, that each student is very different and has different ways of learning. Each way is best for them, and it is very important as educators to find what works for each individual student so everyone can learn and work to their fullest potential. The United States is a country filled with millions of citizens, each with different backgrounds, religions, and cultures. This is constantly changing, and teachers need to make sure they keep up with all these changes. America is known as a melting pot, and teachers need to emphasize this. Teachers should always be prepared on what to do if they have an ELL student in their class. As I have learned in my ELL class at the University of Scranton, they learn very differently than your average learner. Instruction, assessment, and differentiation are just a few things that need to be changed, and it is very important to be prepared. Today, I will be discussing and debating two types of education: bilingual education and English only education. These two forms serve as different methods in teaching ELL students. While both can be effective, there is debate amongst which is the better one. Today, I will be debating that, and I will start by first explaining what each type of education is. So, what is bilingual education? The U.S. Department of Education defines it as bilingual education is simply the use of two languages for instruction. In the U.S., bilingual education is the use of English and another language in instruction. Today, more than ever, there are many students who are bilingual. Bilingual education is prevalent in the classroom. It is said by the year 2048, there will be more Spanish-speaking people in the United States than any other language. This is immense, and we as a nation must continue bilingual education and teach our students not one, but two languages. Our nation was founded on three basic principles: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. By taking away bilingualism, we are taking away the rights that the Constitution guarantees us. As a history major, I study this, and I know that this is something that should be implemented in the classrooms. So now, what is English only? English only is exactly how it sounds. It's the idea that since this is America and English is the main language, that the English language should be the primary tool used in classrooms. Many people argue that bilingual education can confuse students, and when it comes time for standardized tests, they can be very confused. To teach the future of America, whether you are US born or an immigrant, we must teach students the skills that they will use in their lives. As we know, the game of life involves many different subjects. We have history, we have math, we have science, we have English. And it's important to communicate this in many ways. This is why, upon my research, I think that bilingual language should be implemented in the classroom. From a young age, I learned Spanish starting from elementary school. I switched to Italian in middle school because it is my language that I actually speak pretty fluently. And being able to speak two languages has opened the door for me to communicate with many people inside and outside the country. As research has found, Spanish is one of the next most common languages in the United States. A lot of immigrants, a lot of people coming over from other countries speaking Spanish. And I think it's wise for educators to implement this in their teaching Spanish. Not just Spanish, but I think that in certain instances, depending on the ELL student, using bilingual education is a great way for them to understand what they're learning in a language that's comfortable for them. However, there are definitely some drawbacks to bilingual education. One of the main reasons being confusion, and by going back and forth between English and the person's native language, they can easily get confused. Also, a lot of people argue that how can a child learn a new language if they're constantly being taught in the language that their native language? So those are some of the arguments against bilingual education, but overall I think that bilingual education is a great way for teachers to help ELL students become successful and to learn in a way that's comfortable to them, because chances are they might be the only ELL student in the class, maybe the only one in the school. And I understand that teaching English is important for them, but I think that there is a way to do it in which you can implement their native language and also teach them a new language along the way. English only, I agree with. I think that sometimes, given the students' ability, I think that both bilingual and English only education are both effective, but I think that they can be used in different scenarios. So, for example, if a student comes to my school, they're in my classroom, and they know a decent amount of English, I would avoid using bilingual education because I think that it would confuse them. I think that if they have some basic understanding of the English language and are able to communicate, that I would use English only. However, if I had an ELL student who came from another country and did not speak any English, I think that that would be the great time to implement bilingual education because you ease their way into it. You are teaching them the new language while also keeping their other language there just in case. If they don't know any English, it's going to be very hard for them to be thrown into a classroom strictly English. So I think, in my opinion, that bilingual language is important and should be used to an extent, depending on the student's ability, how they are as a student. Obviously, if this is an ELL student who has an IEP and struggles, I would probably go with the more bilingual approach to help them. I think that there's no right answer and which is the better one because it's completely situational, depending on who the student is, what kind of student they are. I think that then the teacher needs to decide. However, I do think that bilingual education is something that should be implemented more because I think that having students learn more than one language, even if they're not an ELL student, is a great skill for them to go on and be able to communicate. As I said, I speak English, obviously. I speak Italian pretty fluently, and I speak some Spanish. But being able to speak Italian fluently, I know it's not a very common language in the United States, but I feel that I'm able to communicate on another level with different people. And when me and my family travel to Italy, I'm able to communicate, and I'm very happy that I was given that opportunity, and I think it definitely should be implemented in more classrooms.